Hello, and welcome to Exposing Truth Ministry for another health nugget. Have you ever felt that burning sensation in your stomach? Could it be stomach acid? Sister Carol, today you're going to tell us what do we do and what is this annoying burning feeling sometimes in our stomach?
Thank you, Sister Faye. Yes, it's a pretty common feeling that we all get from time to time. With some people, it's chronic. So I'll ask you, do you have too much stomach acid? How would you know? We know it by other names, heartburn, acid reflux, GERD. They usually refer to the severity of it, but they're all the same thing, really. So do you think this is your problem or somebody in your family might have this problem? What do you do for it? Well, the quick fix that most people reach for is to grab an antacid. And I'm sure you've heard of them. There's a whole bunch on the market, Prilosec, Tums, Rolaids, Nexium, and on and on and on, because there's a bunch. Let's try to understand what's happening. There's an acid alkaline balance in your body that has a very critical level. Major organs that keep that in balance consist of the lungs and the kidneys. There's other ones involved, but here's the good part. Those two major organs are automatic, that they will keep your acid alkaline balance where it's supposed to be if you give your body the proper nutrients. And but if they're not readily available, your body will take care of it to a pretty large degree. Sounds great, right? That your body's all set up for it and you don't have to do anything about it, except maybe it just is annoying. That's not exactly right. Not exactly. If you leave that critical level that's actually a very, very narrow, that you don't have any control over, at that point, you don't have any control over it, but you do have control over what you eat, right? But if you get out of that narrow margin, you will be sick. It doesn't matter whether it's too much acid or too much alkaline. Your body needs to be pretty close to water, which is 7.0. We're not going to get too much into the whys and wherefores of all of that because it gets complicated, but your body will take care of that. So what happens if you do take an over-the-counter antacid? Because it sounds like a good idea. Well, here's what happens. It makes the problem worse. The first thing that happens when you take an antacid, it's strongly alkaline. So it's at the opposite end of the spectrum of what you want to do. You want to be somewhere in the middle. Secondly, your body, blood, and urine pH quickly becomes alkaline. Well, you think, hey, maybe that's a good thing. It's too acid, so now it's a little extra alkaline shouldn't hurt. That's not right either. The brain then says, oh no, we're too alkaline, and it starts dumping more acid into your system. So guess what that looks like? You're now on a roller coaster. It goes up and down and up and down, and that's not good for your body no matter what system it is. It needs to stay constant, okay? So it's a never-ending cycle, and it doesn't end. Here's what happens in general in your body. There's a sphincter muscle. You know, your stomach when you're standing up is sort of like your fist. We've put your thumb up. The thumb would be your esophagus, and this would be your stomach. And that's a very good position for it to be in. Well, that sphincter muscle is right here at the bottom of the esophagus before you get to the stomach. And when you're standing and it's vertical, it's in the right position. That muscle gets weakened. It gets weakened in several ways, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and allows the stomach, the digestive fluids, and the contents to escape because that muscle is supposed to be closed and keep the contents down. The primary digestive fluid is hydrochloric acid, which you probably already know, but that is extremely acid. And that's what causes the feeling of heartburn, that nasty taste that you really don't enjoy at all. And if it happens often enough, it can damage the esophagus wall, and the sphincter muscle weakens, and it causes problems. Sometimes our lifestyle causes or makes the problem worse. This usually happens because we don't have an understanding of what's going on or no knowledge of how to make it any better. And I hope this morning that we can get a couple of pieces of information that can help you. Here are some of the major problems. Lying down after eating or eating too close to bedtime. When we do this, the stomach isn't in this position anymore. It's in this position. And doesn't that make it a little bit easier for the contents to go this way instead of that way when they're digesting? And when that sphincter is worn out or weakened, that's what happens when the stomach is horizontal from laying down. So it makes things much easier for that problem to continue. Eating a large meal will do the same thing. If you overfill your stomach, the stomach, yeah, it'll stretch, but it doesn't stretch that far. It will cause a problem by allowing actually the sphincter muscle to fail, and it can come up even if you are sitting or standing. That can happen. Or eating some trigger foods. There are some foods that will cause your stomach to be upset with it. And just briefly, I'll let you know they're alcohol, spicy foods, fried foods, vinaigrette dressing, dairy products, beef, chocolate, soda, coffee, and fish oil. That's not the full extent of them, but those are the worst offenders. If you're having a problem, they're going to bother you. Other situations that can cause that sphincter muscle to weaken are a hiatal hernia, obesity, smoking, snacking at bedtime, aspirin or ibuprofen, and some blood pressure medicines. Let's see what the Lord has to say. Psalm 139:14 in part says, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. We were made beautifully, and we were made in balance. 1 Corinthians 3:16 says, know thee not that you are a temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth within you? So we have an obligation, don't we? This one I wrote by hand. Let's see. Romans 12:1. I beseech you, therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that ye present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. So we have an obligation to our Creator to keep our bodies in as best shape as we can. And we can do that with a little bit of knowledge and other things like temperance, because that's in large part, this will come down to not so much changing your lifestyle as it will tempering your lifestyle. But you can repair it to some degree. 1, don't overeat. 2, have your last meal 5 hours before you go to bed. You can probably get away with 4, but you have to make sure that you've allowed enough time for the contents of your meal to leave your stomach. Okay. Avoid drinking with your meals. And then no water up until after 30 minutes before you eat and an hour or 2 after you eat. In that window, you want to allow your digestive juices to take over in your stomach and not be diluted with the water. And that will also help the sphincter valve. Okay. And then don't lay down after having a meal. Don't go take a nap. That's one of the worst things you can do. The balance is the key. We were created perfect and lost our way through ignorance and misinformation. So when you're feeling well and rested, it adds to your ability to focus for study, focus for health, and focus to hear the voice of God. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Carol. We do appreciate you sharing information on, the role of acid in our stomach and how to not get that thing back flowing, because it's not a happy thing when we get it back flowing. Do you have trouble with having a stomach acid indigestion? Or, as you mentioned, there are several names. They call it, several names that they go by. Please let us know in the comment below. Let us know if there's something natural that you use to combat that. If you have learned something from Sister Carol and you want to comment, please feel free to comment in the comment section below. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you'll know when a new health nugget is available. Remember, God wants you to prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prosper, and so do we. Thank you and have a blessed day. Thank you, Sister Carol.